Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 4 of our official podcast, Minutes with Mike. Today I'm going to be interviewing a Scientologist. I want to put a little bit of emphasis on this episode. Please be respectful in the comments. I worked very hard to get this interview, and I would hate to come off as rude because of obnoxious comments or such. So let's keep this all respectful. Much respect to our guests for joining us. It's very brave to come out about stuff like this. Let's get him in a call. Hello?
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. First of all, thank you very much for coming on.
You're very welcome.
All right, so could you just give us a little bit of a walkthrough? What are the basic beliefs of Scientology as a whole?
The simplest explanation would be Scientology proposes that you are an immortal spiritual being known as a Thetan. Think of it the same way you think of as a soul in other religions, but you are an immortal spiritual being that has lived many lives, and every time you die, your soul finds a new body. So
So,
that's the very basic premise.
all right, is it similar in idea to reincarnation that some other religions believe?
Yeah, so our form of reincarnation, from my understanding, I haven't read into it a lot myself, is very similar to aspects of Buddhism.
Ah, all right. Um, when you look up Scientology and their beliefs, you get bombarded with things on Wikipedia about galactic confederacies, aliens.
Sure.
Could you just explain some of that for me, please?
You could go through and buy every Scientology book and find every publicly available course, and the amount of material that talks about the stuff people like to mention about Scientology, just very long space drama, as I've heard people call it. But it's such a small amount of our material. Most of the material that we're dealing with, that we're reading, and that just exists in Scientology is self-help. It's reading, it's learning about parts of the mind. It's very much based in how the mind works, how the spirit works, and how it connects the mind, body, and soul. Uh, but to answer your question, yeah, we talk about space. We talk about very long periods of time. Um, there's a Buddhist term for a very long period of time. I can't remember, but it defines an era beyond time. So our understanding of the universe and science is it's 14 billion years old or so, I think.
Hmm.
But in Scientology, we talk about much longer time spans. And a lot of the space opera stuff comes from this material. But there's not really a lot of material that relates to this. When you're doing Scientology, you're going to mostly just be clash work, is the
Ah,
easiest way to put it.
all right. As Scientology, it is considered a religion. Does it have any religious holidays?
Not really. We celebrate Christmas, we celebrate some other holidays, but we don't really have our own special things. We celebrate L. Ron Hubbard's birthday, but it's not really a holiday, just more of a day of celebration for the church. And we
That
celebrate church
actually,
like anniversary.
sorry to interrupt, but that brings us to our next question. Who is L. Ron Hubbard? Who is he?
Lafayette Ron Hubbard is the founder of our church. He wrote Dianetics. He was a science fiction author who wrote Pulp Fiction, and he was a man who liked to explore. He was in the military. He sailed around on his boat for much of his life, and he was someone who liked to explore applied religious philosophy, which is what Scientology is. And he is just a man. We don't think of him as some sort of deity or something like that. But as the source of all the original Scientology material and as the basis of all of our beliefs, we treat him with reverence.
So he's just an ordinary person. He's just like everyone else.
Yeah, if you came along and wrote some stuff that worked awesome and it worked and people tested it, you'd be treated the same way. It's just people who are appreciative of his work. Like we're not praying to him or anything like that.
So what are the services like? Or if you guys go to like the church every Sunday, how does that really work?
So we have a Sunday service, but that's not really a thing for established members. Some might go to it, but it's more for where we explain like our common beliefs. So you go to a church, they're gonna like a Catholic church is a church I've been to.
Hmm.
They're just gonna be reading you a part of the Bible, and they're gonna do a sermon. It's kind of like that. They're gonna read you. They might read you a chapter of one of the books. They might do some kind of presentation just talking about things. But anyone who's been a member for a long time generally won't go to these services because you already
All
have
right.
gotten it all.
So, what is the Wall of Fire? Because that also popped up when I was
Yep.
reading about it.
So the Wall of Fire, going back to one of your earlier questions with space opera and all that,
Hmm.
the Wall of Fire, otherwise known as OT3, is one of the higher OT levels, and it's called the Wall of Fire because it's one of those make or break points. Once you're at this point, you've been in the church for many years. A lot of importance is put on it because of that, but um, if I had to put a number on it, it contains all. It's a paragraph and a half of material. It's very simple, and all it really leads to, as far as services go, is some solo auditing, which is a part of the OT levels, which I can explain later if you'd like. Um,
Oh yeah,
but
definitely.
yeah, OT3 is a very small level despite being treated as a very big thing. I know some of the famous critics like Leah Remini and some of those people have spoken about it, and it's a big talking point for the church. We don't talk about it ourselves. It's treated as confidential material, and but really what it is unimportant up until that point in Scientology. It's not going to change anything from the lower levels.
All right.
You can ask me a more
So,
specific question if you'd like. I'm not sure what
oh
you'd
yeah, yeah,
exactly
yeah.
like.
So as you know, in different religion, there's moral codes. The Christians, they have the Ten
Yes.
Commandments, be nice and stuff. So what are some moral codes, of Scientology, really?
Ethics. We have books on ethics. It's pretty much the standard of way of living. We have an emotional tone scale, which you can find with a Google search. And it's very simple. A child could understand it. At the top is just radiant positivity. At the lowest point is like on existence and death. Then in the middle, you just got like anger and boredom and stuff like that. And it's just a way of assessing ourselves. It's not like hard rules like ethics might be, but it's just a way you go about living. It's pretty much simple codes of conducts. Yeah.
So based on everything you've told me in my audience, is it safe to say that Scientology is mostly focused on mental health and emotional just support and stuff?
It's more of a self-help.
Ah.
Um, like it depends where you're at. When you're first entering the church, you're doing like the free courses, which is more kind of classwork, or you can do those online. But as you get further up, you're going to be less in like big classrooms and do more auditing. You might have like a couple people you work with if you have an auditing partner, or if you're paying for auditing or however you choose to go about it. But it's a lot of self-reflection and reading.
All right, sorry, just give me a second. I just gotta go shut my
Yep,
door.
no
Parents are being
problem.
really loud. Sorry.
No worries.
I've been trying to get some soundproof boards for my studio for a while now, but
You got to get that acoustic foam.
definitely. So what are OT levels? Is there some sort of hierarchy, within the
Okay,
church?
so it's not like a hierarchy. So when you're the first thing you're going to do in the church that's not one of the free courses is called the TRs, that's short for training routine. And you start at OTTR0. And you're going to work your way all the way up to clear. And once you go clear, you're going to reach the OT levels, which is operating Thetan. And once you're on
Hmm.
operating Thetan, the courses are different. That's when you get a lot into like the solo stuff. That's when the solo auditing starts, and that's when you start reaching the point where local orgs usually can't handle your services, and you might need to go to like the flag land base or somewhere else.
Huh. All right. So what is the org? Because that also came up.
So yeah, yeah. So the Sea Org is what it sounds like. Originally, when L. Ron Hubbard was alive, he had a boat. They had a large cruise ship that they turned into their personal ship that's still used today. But what they did is they had staff members who dedicated themselves to pretty much going around the world to spread Scientology with L. Ron Hubbard. After he stopped cruising around and he started being on land, they still called it the Sea Org, and they still have the pseudo Navy uniforms. But what it is nowadays is it's just people who, instead of signing on for a normal staff contract, which I believe is 2 or 4 years, or like 3 and 6 years, something like that, they sign like a lifelong contract. Now, you can get out of it, but the idea is when you sign it, the church is going to take care of you. They'll provide your housing, provide you
Mm.
travel, give you clothes, that kind of stuff.
Oh, so
And
it's
then you just
mm.
you work as like a church employee, but someone who more like a priest.
All right. So is there a so
Easiest
is
way.
it kind of like a missionary position, the Sea Org?
Um, So yeah, some people are on recruitment. They're usually recruiting staff members. Sometimes they'll deal with public if you're very serious about wanting to get involved. As for like recruitment, you mean like of the general public, not
Oh
for the
yeah,
Sea Org,
like just
or
going around, spreading the religion and just informing
not
people
really.
about it.
If you're in a city with an org, you'll notice they call them body routers. It's someone who'll stand outside, and if you're looking in the shop, they might say like, "Hey, are you interested? Do you have a question?" Stuff like that. They'll just people who try to get you in the door, but you're never really going to have anyone who's like the Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses going door to door. Have you heard about Scientology? You're never going to get that.
Ah, all right. I think you might have briefly mentioned this, but like, what are their religious texts, if they
So
have any?
yeah, well, the way it works is we consider all of it religious text just because it's all the material we use. If you had to pick a definitive Bible, it would be Dianetics because that holds all of our core beliefs in there, and all the other books are just expanding on things that were mentioned in Dianetics.
Hmm. All right, and thank you very much so far. This has been great.
Yeah, no problem.
Now I'm gonna transition into a segment. This might get a little bit personal. Tell me if you
Yep.
just want to skip the question or whatever. But
Yeah, well,
Scientology kind of gets this rep for being, a cult, rituals.
yes.
But how often do you get discriminated or insulted online or in real life about being a Scientologist?
So not really often. As far as like personal relationships, I haven't had any issues with friends. I had some people raise concern and try to talk to me, but I wasn't arguing with anyone. As for online, yeah, you get some harassment if you're publicly a Scientologist. But what a lot of people don't realize is Scientologists are everywhere online. You go on Facebook, you could be talking to one and not know it. A lot of times we don't make it. Our profile doesn't say, I'm a Scientologist, I'm a Libra, I'm whatever. Uh, we're aware that people discriminate against us, and we just keep it to ourselves because there's not really much of a need to proselytize.
Yeah, and that's exactly the purpose of my podcast. It's to get a one-on-one interview and talk with people of communities that are, I think, unfairly discriminated against. So thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Does Scientology deserve the hate, considering its history, controversies, and just overall, does it deserve the hate?
A lot of people will just flatly tell you no, and they will just say that it's fully just because of people hating on us. But I think as an organization, we should be willing to take the blame when we do mess up. And there's times Scientology has messed up. I don't think they deserve the acclaim they get. I think a big reason why the negativity in Scientology is so much bigger than, say, I don't know, say some cult. Say some cult is doing something and they screw up big time. When their members leave, they're not high profile celebrities who are going to go on the news and say anything they want. You have a
Hmm.
different situation. I think a lot of these people who are very vocal critics, when you see their complaints about the church, a lot of times the actual complaints they have are mostly they felt like they were bamboozled or something like that. Um,
Yes.
and I can't speak for them. If they feel that way, they can feel that way. It's not universal. But in Scientology, we have a way of thinking. Scientology is created for the greatest number of people to get the greatest benefits, not for everyone to get the best benefits. It's not designed for every single individual. And there are people who are not going to do well with it. And I've seen it before where someone takes a honest try, and it doesn't work for them. Their brain is wired differently. There are options for people like that if they're genuinely interested, but we really don't push things on people. The only
Uh,
thing that gets pushed on you is to move up on courses by the Regis.
um, what's it like? Let's say I'm a devoted Catholic or Roman Catholic. Let's say I want to join, let's say I want to join Scientology or change my religion. Is there discrimination against people that come from other religions, or do they just
No, in
welcome you with
fact,
open arms?
you could join Scientology and still identify as a Catholic. So there's oh, I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Louis Farrakhan, like the Nation of Islam guy. Several of his members, him himself, have actually received Scientology services, and they're still very devout Muslims. So it's I guess you would call it non-denominational. Anyone can join. I think if you're a member for a certain amount of time, you're going to identify less and less with your previous religion, but some people haven't. I've met people who are very far up who are still Christians or Jews or whatever.
Hmm. Tell me, are there any moral enemies? Like, are there any people or
Yes.
religions or groups you guys just can't stand?
Not any other religions. We're not a fan of the field of psychiatry. um,
Oh,
the you if you download the Scientology app, or I think even go on one of the websites, you can find a bunch of free videos. There's some cool documentaries that have been done, but we're very against the treatment of psychiatric patients. We think a lot of medication, mostly psychiatric drugs, are usually not for the positive. We're not against medicine or anything like that. You can take aspirin, whatever. We think kind of in a holistic way. You know, if you break your ankle and you're treating it with tons of pain meds and sitting on your butt, why are you taking the pain meds when you could be using your energy to try to do it yourself? We have a thing called touch assists, for example, and it's just we think instead of hiding the problem, why not solve the problem and confront the problem and handle it?
hmm. So you guys don't believe in pushing things, under the carpets, hiding things away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We think things need to be dealt with. When you have a situation, you should handle it. Because if you don't handle the situation, it's going to blow up and it's going to be your fault for not handling it.
How many members would you say actively believe in Scientology? Like, how many members does the whole organization have?
It varies very wildly. The Washington D.C. org, which is the org I've spent one of the orgs I've spent quite some time in. Um, I don't know. For some of the events, you'd see like 2,000 people coming out, but it's hard to say. Some of the international events have pretty large audiences, but it all comes down to how many people have the time and money to fly to some city for an opening event.
All right, this question's a little bit personal, and I think it's gonna wrap up our interview. What
Okay.
what what brought you into Scientology? Sorry, what's the appeal? What made you into the person you are now today?
So I joined when I was 19. As like a kid, I was religious. I was raised in like a Christian Catholic kind of mixed household.
Hmm.
As a teenager, I saw myself as like an atheist, agnostic kind of type. And I read Dianetics when I was 19. I was reading through a bunch of philosophy stuff. Uh, I'd heard about Scientology very briefly through Super Bowl ads. I just remembered seeing it a few times, and so when I saw Dianetics, it rung a bell because I saw it on Hubbard, and I read it. I did a free course online. I contacted my local org and went down and just talked to some people. I took a few months to get into it, but then I was pretty gung ho. I've done pretty well with it. I've really enjoyed my experience.
That's awesome. Getting an ad for your religion at the Super Bowl. That's honestly
Yeah,
awesome.
they have some fairly famous ads. They pay big money for the Super Bowl ads. I think it's like $1 million a
Wow.
minute. Yeah.
So they really are. So would you say that they're more mainstream than your typical religion?
No, no. I've met plenty of people who don't even know what I'm talking about when I say I'm a Scientologist. Um, it depends where you live. If you're in a more rural area, not so much. In cities, I think more or less everyone knows, or at least has heard of it. The problem with that, though, is they just don't know what it is. Like, your audience here is listening to me say, like, oh, well, there's Dianetics. I didn't even get into auditing or anything. In fact, if you ever wanted me back, I'd happily explain some of those details. But when people think Scientology, all they think is, I'm going to say a word that's going to get me in trouble, Xenu.
Oh no, he said the
um,
word. Get
I
this man
said
out
it.
of here.
I said the word. Um, But I'm just gonna say Scientology is mostly auditing. I'll be brief with this so we can end this. But auditing is just sitting back and across from someone using an e-meter, which is the thing that has the goofy cans. It's got a screen on it, and you talk. It reads electromagnetics through your body. I'm explaining that poorly,
Well,
but it's like a one-part lie detector, and it's supposed to just be like guided therapy. I don't want to use that word therapy, but it's like what's that term? Guy that type of hypnosis where they like take someone back in time. Revert. Wow.
yeah, I
But
I get
whatever
what
it
you're
is.
saying. Wow.
Yeah, a lot of it's that, and you're just exploring your memories, trying to clear traumas. Like when you go into an event, they might just say, "Find a time where you felt happy." You think of a time you felt happy. Then you get past that, you get this a time when you felt sad, and you remember that moment when you scraped your knee, and I don't know, your dad didn't kiss your boo boo. I don't know, something upset you, and you're gonna go over that over and over, and you're gonna get like the ability to very clearly remember and think about the event. And the more you go over it, you're releasing this trauma. And once you're able to think about the event without the needle moving a certain way, that's how you cleared it. And that's a lot of what Scientology is. That or you're reading something and you have to fill out answers to a test. Not like a test, but you'll have someone who's a course supervisor. They'll check your answers and they'll talk to you about it. They might pass you, might fail you, and you're supposed to just review this information, and it's all just a self-exploration journey. When people think about like the OT levels and some of like the crazy stuff they've heard from someone, they're getting it with no context. When you get this stuff with clearer context, you can make your own decision. You don't have to believe anything. And I'll finish it off with this. L. Ron Hubbard wrote, if any of this, I'm paraphrasing,
Hmm.
but if any of this does not vibe right with you, if this doesn't make sense, or you see something that you just don't agree with, don't apply it because it doesn't apply to you. These are rules that are very loose that are meant to apply to many different people, and I can end it there.
That's that's a great way to end it off. I was gonna ask, is there anything you want to say, but you took the words right out of my mouth. You read my mind.
Oh, thank you. I try.
Thank you so much
Uh,
once again.
yeah, I'm very happy to do this.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Have a good night.
You too. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna be it. Fantastic interview. Probably one of my greatest episodes. Comment who you guys want me to see next. Let's go.